The girl who wouldn't fall. The alien ship groaned as it tore through the emptiness of space, its hull scarred from recent battles. Inside, a group of alien marines known as the Varnock Squad prepared for what they believed would be their final push into the enemy's core stronghold. Their mission was delicate, the stakes high, and among them was the only human assigned to the unit, Staff Sergeant Alina, Red Carter. Red wasn't built like the others. She had no exoskeleton, no venom glands, no regenerative tentacles. She was flesh and bone, scars and sarcasm. And yet, as the Varnock often whispered among themselves, she was the most terrifying being in the unit. The mission had barely begun when disaster struck. A pulse grenade detonated too close during their breach, and Red was thrown against the bulkhead. When the smoke cleared, her left leg was gone from the knee down. For a few moments, time seemed to stop. The Varnock stared in stunned silence. They had seen soldiers fall from lesser wounds. They'd seen creatures collapse at the mere loss of a sensory organ. But Red, she propped herself up, looked down at her missing leg, blinked once, then let out a short laugh. "Well," she said, her voice hoarse but steady, "there goes my chance at the dance competition." No one laughed. Not at first. Not until Red began tying a tourniquet made from a shredded piece of her uniform. She worked fast, biting down on her sleeve to stifle the pain, her fingers moving with surgical precision. Her skin was pale, sweat beading on her brow, but her eyes burned with determination. "Sergeant Carter," hissed Commander Vorak, the unit leader, his deep purple scales rippling in alarm. "You are injured beyond acceptable parameters. You must be evacuated." "Evac's not coming, Commander," she grunted. "And unless you've got a prosthetic leg in your fancy med kit, I suggest we move." "But your mobility." "Still got 3 limbs. That's more than enough." The other Varnock looked at each other in disbelief. In their culture, warriors who lost limbs were considered finished. Honorably discharged, yes, but never expected to fight again. To continue forward without hesitation. That was madness. Red grabbed a rifle from the floor, adjusted its strap over her shoulder, and used the wall to pull herself up. She stood on her good leg, blood-soaked bandage wrapped tight, and pointed down the corridor. "We've got a mission. I didn't come halfway across the galaxy to play dead." It was in that moment that something changed in the Varnock. Where there had been uncertainty, there was now awe. They didn't understand how this fragile-looking human could endure such pain and still smile, still fight. But they followed her, step by limping step, because in Red's presence, even fear had no place. As they advanced deeper into the enemy vessel, Red led with unwavering resolve. Every few steps, she'd crack a joke, masking her agony with humor. "Hey, at least now I don't have to clip my toenails on the left," she said once, chuckling to herself as they passed smoldering wreckage. The corridors pulsed with alien energy, humming with an eerie rhythm like the ship was alive and watching them. Red's sharp eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, never letting pain dull her instincts. "I studied architecture back on Earth," she muttered to the Varnock engineer beside her, Yiln. "This layout reminds me of termite mounds, creepy and smart. But if I were designing this, I'd hide the power core right up there." She pointed with her rifle. Yiln blinked his compound eyes. "Your logic is disturbingly accurate." "Yeah, humans have a habit of guessing the worst-case scenario. Keeps us alive." Then came the first ambush. Gnarled insectoid enemies burst from the walls. Creatures known as the Krill, defenders of the ship. The Varnock instinctively braced for retreat, but Red was already firing. Balanced on one leg, using the wall for support, she shouted orders, guiding the squad's counterattack like a conductor leading an orchestra of chaos. They won the fight, barely. Bodies littered the floor. Smoke filled the air. Red reloaded, her hands shaking from pain and adrenaline. Yiln approached her, hesitant. "Why do you do this? You are broken. You should rest." Red looked at him, her face pale but eyes blazing. Because I'm human, and humans don't break that easy. We bend, we bleed, but we don't stop. The ship groaned again, this time louder, like it was waking up to the threat inside. Lights flickered. Somewhere deeper in the hull, something massive shifted. The squad had only just begun their journey into the heart of enemy space, but already they were changed. Not because of orders, not because of glory, because of one human who refused to fall. Red adjusted her grip on the rifle, winked at Yiln, and said, "Now come on, Starlight. Let's go raise some hell." And with that, the limping legend pressed forward, into the unknown, into danger, into history, through fire and shadows. The deeper they went into the Krill warship, the stranger things became. Twisting corridors that seemed to shift when unobserved, doors that melted open like flesh instead of sliding with metal precision, organic pulses rippling along the walls, beating like the rhythm of a dark heart. The Varnock squad moved in tight formation, weapons raised, eyes darting. At the center, still limping and leaning on her rifle like a crutch, was Red. Even wounded, she led from the front. Each step sent pain lancing up her body. Her heartbeat felt like a drum against her ribs. But pain was a language she spoke fluently. It didn't control her. It was just background noise to a voice that refused to go quiet. Red glanced over her shoulder at her squad. The Varnock moved with more urgency now, not because she ordered them, but because they believed in her. It was hard not to. They had watched her fight half a dozen enemies on one leg, eyes sharp, jokes sharper. But the silence that now filled the ship wasn't natural. "There's something wrong," Red said, whispering. "They're not attacking anymore." Commander Vorak moved beside her. "They are watching us." "Yeah," she muttered, scanning the ceiling. "And I hate being watched." Suddenly, a low vibration trembled through the floor, like a distant growl. The Varnock froze, and so did Red. She dropped to one knee, grinding her teeth as her stump throbbed. "Motion sensors?" she asked, voice low. Yiln, the tech specialist, tapped his translator device. "I detect something. Not mechanical. Organic. Like the ship is preparing." "For what?" "For us," Yiln replied. Before they could react, a section of the wall peeled open, revealing a dark chamber beyond. The air was thicker, charged with static and heat. Red narrowed her eyes. "They want us to go in." Vorak growled low. "It is a trap." "Of course, it's a trap. Everything in war is a trap. The question is, do we spring it smart or stupid?" The squad looked to her again. Despite their own training, centuries of war logic, and hardened survival instincts, they waited for the decision of a one-legged human who laughed at her own pain. Red pushed herself up. "We go in. Slow, silent, safe." They entered the chamber like ghosts. It was massive, dome-shaped, with a floor that shimmered like black water. Strange symbols glowed on the walls. Krill language, but twisted and corrupted, as if written by something that had forgotten how to speak. In the center of the room stood a pulsating mass of crystal and flesh, the Krill hive core. The mission objective. Yiln whispered, "This isn't just a power source. It's alive." Red didn't answer. She was staring at the structure, her instincts flaring. Something inside it was moving, slowly, deliberately, like a giant eye opening. And then it did. From the crystal surface, a psychic wave slammed into them, knocking everyone to their knees. Red screamed as images poured into her mind, visions of destruction, of planets falling, of species screaming into extinction. The Krill hive was speaking to her. "You do not belong, you are unworthy. You will be unmade." Red gasped, the pressure in her skull unbearable. But then she grit her teeth and spat blood onto the floor. "Buddy," she growled, "you picked the wrong species to mess with." She surged forward, one leg, one arm, one stubborn flame that refused to die. Vorak shouted. "What are you doing?" "Buying us time." She reached into her belt, pulled out the plasma grenade, and limped toward the core. The hive screamed in her mind, trying to crush her will. Memories flooded her brain. Her mother dying in a fire, the sound of rain on a battlefield, her first kiss, her worst scar. But she held it all tight. This was who she was. Broken, yes. Bleeding, always. But unyielding. She reached the core, slapped the grenade on its pulsing side, and turned. Run. The Varnak didn't hesitate. They bolted, dragging each other, helping Red as the chamber shook. The hive roared, collapsing behind them as fire chased their shadows. The explosion ripped through the corridor in a wave of heat and sound. When they finally emerged into the ship's command bridge, coughing and scorched, Red collapsed. "Someone tell me we got it," she wheezed. Vorak looked back. "It is destroyed. The hive is dead." Red smiled through cracked lips. "Well, good. Can someone carry me now? Because I'm officially out of cool one-liners." The Varnak commander, a creature who once viewed humans as reckless and weak, stepped forward and lifted her in his powerful arms like a soldier carrying a wounded queen. "No, Sergeant Carter," he said, voice low. "You have said more than enough." As they secured the bridge, waiting for extraction, the ship around them began to die. Lights flickered out. The temperature dropped, but none of it mattered. They had won. Not because they were stronger, or faster, or more advanced, but because one human refused to fall. And now, the galaxy would remember her name. The fire that wouldn't go out. The extraction ship sliced through the black sky like a falling star, silent and invisible. On board, Commander Vorak stood rigid by the window, watching the desolate moon below. The shattered wreckage of the Krill High ship, now resting as burning debris. Inside the extraction bay, Red Carter lay unconscious on a medic slab, her stump freshly sealed by alien biotechnology. Her skin was pale, her pulse weak, but her heart, her human heart, still beat like war drums behind her ribcage. "She will live," said Drinkel, the Varnak medic, inspecting the readings. "Barely. But it is not over." Yiln approached, his antenna twitching in thought. The hive was not the end. It was a node, just one part of something larger. Commander Vorak didn't flinch. "Then we follow it, wherever it leads." Red stirred, her breath caught, eyes fluttering open. The lights above were blurry at first, then sharpened. Familiar alien faces circled around her. She groaned, turning her head slowly. "Am I dead?" "Not yet," Yiln said, half joking. "Damn. Then who do I sue for emotional trauma?" They didn't laugh. Instead, a silence settled. Not discomfort, but reverence. Even those who had doubted her strength now stood a little straighter in her presence. Her legend had already begun to grow. In every corner of the ship, whispers echoed. The human who stood on one leg and took down a hive. Red blinked. Status. "A high ship is destroyed," Vorak said. "But there are signals, disturbances, other hives. We believe the Krill were only testing our defenses." Red's face darkened. "Then we just poked a hornet's nest." She pushed herself up, ignoring Drinkel's protests. She couldn't stand yet, not fully. But she sat straight. "Where's my gear?" "You need rest," Vorak insisted. "Medical recovery. I'm not here for a vacation. If they're coming, I want to meet them at the door. But you cannot fight." Red fixed him with a glare. "Watch me." It wasn't arrogance, it was resolve. 3 days later, Red was on a new ship, the Dauntless Star. Her prosthetic leg, alien forged and painfully attached, clicked softly with every step. She wasn't used to it yet, but she didn't wait. She trained, every day. Firing drills, tactical reviews, simulations. She even made jokes about the leg. "Finally got an upgrade," she'd quip. "Now I'm 10% Varnak, 90% sarcasm. But behind the humor, there was steel. The krill had tested her, and she planned to test them back, at full force. The ship's AI pinged a message across the bridge. Unusual activity detected. Unmarked vessel approaching Nebula 7 Delta. Life forms confirmed. Structure: unknown. Composition: organic. Red stood beside the command crew, dressed in black tactical gear. Her hair was pulled back, her new leg plated in reflective armor. She looked different. Still red, but forged harder, like iron after fire. Commander Vorak turned to her. "We are approaching another hive." "Let me go in first," Red said. Silence. "You are suggesting a solo infiltration." Yilm blinked in disbelief. "Not solo, just early." She smiled grimly. "Let them know who's knocking." The crew prepared the dropship. Hours later, Red stood at the edge of a shadowy canyon on a krill moon, the walls glowing with dull red veins, alien blood flowing under stone. She held her rifle tight, her new leg sinking slightly in the soft ash. Then she stepped inside. The krill didn't wait this time. They came fast, dozens of them, shrieking, armored, sharp. Red fired in calculated bursts, dropping them one by one, using her environment, setting traps. She moved with precision, less brute strength now, more deadly grace. The prosthetic leg gave her stability, and her human instincts gave her unpredictability. She made it into the central chamber, where a new hive mind pulsed inside a throne of bone and crystal. It opened its mouth, not to roar, but to speak. "You are not welcome. You are flawed, weak, a species of emotion and chaos." Red raised her rifle, her breath steady. "You're right," she whispered. "We are emotional. We cry. We break. We bleed. But when we fight, when we decide something is worth protecting, we don't stop. We will crush you." She smiled. "Get in line." Then she pulled the trigger. The explosion cracked the moon's surface like glass. The dauntless star watched from orbit, recording the massive energy discharge. They thought Red was gone, until the comm crackled. "Still alive," her voice groaned through static. "Slightly on fire. Need a ride." The bridge burst into cheers. Back on board, Red limped onto the deck, her armor scorched, her face dirtied with ash, but her eyes bright. Commander Vorak approached. "You disobeyed direct orders. I like making entrances. You destroyed another hive. I was aiming for 2. The Varnak commander paused, then saluted. "For the first time in Varnak history," he said, "we offer rank to an outsider." Red raised an eyebrow. "A promotion. A declaration. You are no longer a guest. You are one of us." Red looked around at the crew, the aliens who had once feared her, now cheering her name. "No," she said, smiling. "I'm still human. Just better armed now." And so, the girl who wouldn't fall became something more. Not a hero. A warning. To anyone who believed that humans were fragile things.